My name is Barry Deane. I was born in May 17th, 1951.
Were you born in Webster?
I was born in Greece, New York,
Oh,
and my family moved to Webster in 1957.
okay. Okay. Where did you live when you first came here?
Shorewood Drive.
Oh, so you were in West Webster.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. And so being in West Webster, were you in West Webster the entire time you were in school?
Yes.
All right. So what kind of changes did you see over there during the time you were there?
Well, the subdivision we moved into was a brand new subdivision, so I got to see a lot of the houses being built. We were one of the first houses in the neighborhood, and it built up in a matter of 4 or 5 years. And the biggest thing I see is just the growth, the disappearance of farmland. Cuyaba's had a big orchard. Cuyaba's had a big grape orchard as well, vineyard. And right there on DeWitt Road, they grew Concord grapes. And down the road for them, right next to DeWitt Road School, which when I was a kid, there was no DeWitt Road School.
What was there instead?
I think it was all just farmland, open farmland.
Wow. Okay.
I went to Bay Road School. I was in the first grade at Bay Road School.
Wow.
And I remember being there when they did the cornerstone, the time block.
Really?
Yeah. It's funny things you remember. I remember Nancy Burlov was the person in our class that was selected to be our representative.
Wow. Okay.
It's funny how you remember those things.
Wow.
But
Wow. So did you actually? So you actually saw the school being built, even? So you were right there when it was happening?
No, because we moved in the summer and went to school
In the fall?
in the fall. So
Okay.
it was already built. So we didn't see it built, but it was already there.
Did you walk to school or did you take a bus?
We took a bus.
Okay.
We took a bus. And back then, the bus drivers, a lot of them were farmers,
Okay.
and they were all pretty interesting guys.
What did they do? Did they come down DeWitt, or did they go down Bacchus and come down Bay? How did they?
They came down DeWitt and turned into our subdivision. Now, the high school kids back in that day all had to walk out to DeWitt Road and got picked up out at DeWitt Road.
Okay.
And that went on for a few years, and then eventually they came and drove all around. And they'd fill a bus in our subdivision. They'd fill a bus. Just on my street, there had to be 15 kids that would get on the bus.
Wow. Okay.
So it was a great neighborhood. There was a lot in age groups. We were fairly close, so we played sports together all the time, every day, all day.
Wow. Okay.
Baseball, football, basketball, hockey down in the bay.
Oh wait, so you actually went down to the water?
We could walk out our backyards through the woods right down to around the Quake Bay.
Really?
Yeah.
So did you do that in the wintertime too? And
Yes, in the winter. Yeah, and the summer and winter we've done it. It was playground. And in the winter, the cove there, which is like what it is right now, it was a winter carnival every weekend. Once the ice froze, because there was no Arundecoit Bay Bridge at the time, that whole bay froze solid, except for the mouth of the outlet.
Okay.
And cars were on it, and there was go-kart races and motorcycle races, and there was a guy that had a plane that didn't have a wing on it. It just had a propeller and a rear rudder, and would give people and skis and give people rides in it back and forth. And there was ice boats, and it was a carnival every weekend.
Wow.
And our group from our neighborhood, we'd go down there and we'd shovel off a spot and we'd play hockey.
Okay.
And eventually one weekend, a fella pulled up in a van, and he had half a dozen kids with him from the city, and he was a coach, and he brought them down there to play hockey, and we ended up playing them every weekend. So it was really really fun.
That's awesome.
It was great.
Did you guys swim in the summertime?
You didn't swim in the bay.
Okay.
You fell into it.
Okay.
Back then there would be an inch or two of algae on top.
Ah.
It wasn't pretty.
Do you think the water quality was gone up over time?
Oh, I think the water quality is much better.
Okay.
Much better than it was. You don't see the algae ponds, the blooms on top. It was like a granular coating. Then you got your boat out, you had to wash it because it would stain the hulls of the boat.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And Oh, there was a bait shop across the bay, across from us. Gaskin's Bait Shop. That's where you could go buy night crawlers and that
In
kind of thing.
Irondequoit?
It was right on Lake Road in Webster.
Oh, okay. Okay. Up on the sandbar.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
just down the street a bit from Castaways.
Okay.
But and he had a dock and he had boats that you could rent to go, whatever. And every time there was a bad storm, the dock would break loose and it'd end up over on our shore, on the south side, and we'd be over there playing on the dock, and we'd have the boats, and he'd come over, come on, boys, and we'd get the boats out of the water and bail them out and get them on, and he'd tow us over.
So has the sandbar changed a lot since then? I mean, when you were there, you got to see it, 50 years ago.
Well, the location hasn't changed. The development certainly has. There was coal trestles across the street right next to Castaways. There was a couple of restaurants there. The one I remember the most is Jim Nolan's. I believe the Bayside, they tell me, was Peg's originally. Jim Nolan's was first, it was Charlie Riedel from Charlie's Restaurant.
Yeah.
He ran that. It was his, and it was named Lynn and Scott's, and there's two oldest kids. And he sold it to a fellow that was a cook for him, named Jim Nolan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so there was a railroad there, and I can remember, I was just telling Debbie that I can remember seeing the train coming through with a big plow on the front of it.
Really?
Yeah, that was really cool.
That is really cool.
That was really cool. And the train, that's the train went through there, went over the outlet, what do you call it?
The
outlet.
Yeah.
The outlet. Went over the outlet, and because there was a bridge for cars, and then there was the bridge for the train.
Okay. Was there ever any passenger service there when you were there?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I don't recall any passenger service.
So you never used that?
No.
Okay. So you guys so your family had a car, right? I mean, so
Yeah,
you
had a couple of cars.
had a couple cars. Okay. So you guys, where did you guys do in Webster? Did you drive around the town? How did your parents shop? And where did they go?
Wegmans, Eastway.
Okay.
And that's changed several times over the years. Its location remained the same, but it was in different parts of that location. And it was pretty cool. In the summer, they had a bandstand out in the parking lot, and they'd have the big brass come in. They'd have Glenn Miller, Tommy Dorsey, and them that would come in and play. And they'd have their sidewalk sale, and hot dogs for a nickel, and pop, and ice cream for a nickel, and that kind of deal. But I loved the brass. I was a little kid. I loved hearing the brass. You could get right up close to the stage.
Wow. Okay.
And listen to Benny Goodman. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So was there any place that they went for, like, department stores, or did you ever go to the Village or anything like that? Or did you pretty much stay in West Webster?
We used to go, Milk Cases in the Village was a clothing store. No, wait, he was the drugstore. I'm thinking of Howard Miller.
Okay.
Howard Miller was the clothing store. And we did shop there, and went to Candy Kitchen, obviously. Candy Kitchen was a big deal.
Okay.
But there was some department stores down in West Webster as well.
Okay.
Nom Brothers, Present Company,
Yep.
Sibley's. They were all right there. You could do all your all your Christmas shopping right there.
Okay.
Which I usually did in one day.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
The day before Christmas.
Exactly. Yeah. Poor guys. Yeah, that's right. Did your family ever go into the city, or did you stay pretty much in Webster? I mean.
No, we would go into the city for the War Memorial, for events. We go for dinners. Eddie's Chop House. We'd go there. It was one of my dad's favorite places. Other restaurants were. There was one on Blossom. I forget the name of it. The Dickens.
Oh, okay.
I used to go to a restaurant called the Dickens,
Okay.
and they were famous for their lobster bisque.
Okay.
And I believe Flaherty's on Bay Road today has that recipe.
Wow.
I believe so. I could be wrong, but I think they do. I think I read that somewheres, and they are too. They're known for that too.
Now, were your parents born in Monroe County?
My dad was. My mom is from North Olmsted Falls, Ohio.
Okay. All right.
And her family were greenhouse people. Between my three uncles and my grandfather, they had probably 20 acres under glass.
Okay.
And they grew tomatoes. And then
Wow.
over a period of time, they changed over to flowers.
Okay.
Seasonal flowers, poinsettias, Easter lilies, chrysanthemums, the giant chrysanthemums.
Okay.
It was quite an operation.
Did your father and mother? I don't know if did they work in Webster?
My dad worked at Kodak.
Okay.
40 years, retired after 40 years. He did very well there. He did extremely well at Kodak. He was really high up on the ladder in the motion picture and sheet film division.
Okay.
And he's a big man. He's a giant man.
Really?
He's 6'6", 275 pounds.
Wow.
Back in the day, that was a big guy. Today, that's not so big. But back then, that was really big.
Okay.
And my brother was as well.
So you had some brothers and sisters?
I had an older brother. He's deceased. And he was 6 years older than me. And I have a sister that's still alive that's 4 years older than me, and she lives in Greece.
Ah, okay. Excellent. All right. Okay.
You should see her kids.
They're really tall too?
Oh my goodness. My nephew Ryan is like 6'9". And my niece Kim I think she's 6'1".
So you come from a tall family.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm the run of the litter.
That's funny. Wow. So when you went from elementary school, where did you go for junior high school or for middle school?
Bay Road ran out of room, so their 6th grade was moved to Spry.
Oh wow, that must have been a big change for you.
It was. So I went to Spry. I was in Spry 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade.
How long was that bus trip from Shorewood Drive to Spry?
15 minutes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
It wasn't too long.
Okay.
But so I spent 4 years in Spry.
Oh, so you went 6, 7, 8, and 9 there?
Yes, 6, 7, 8, and 9.
Okay. All right.
And then on to R.L. Thomas.
Okay.
It was called R.L. Thomas at the time.
Okay. Now, was R.L. Thomas fairly new at the time
Yes,
as well?
I think R.L. Thomas opened up in 62, right around there. Pretty sure it was right around there.
Okay. So what kind of changes did you see in the town during the time you were in junior high and high school? Do you have any experiences you remember? Like were you involved in clubs and things that got you out, or what did you do in high school and junior high school?
I played sports.
Okay.
I played sports. It's just what we did.
Okay.
It was all school year, played football, played baseball, and in the summer it was it's just baseball all day, every day, and then into football, and then into basketball, and then back to baseball. I mean, that's what we did.
Okay.
One thing, there was always a game going on somewheres, and it's one thing you don't see anymore is you don't see any kids playing sports that aren't organized sports. Back then, we had organized sports, but not as prolific as it is now. And it was the Sandlot games were more prevalent.
So you just have teams that would form, and then you would just
Neighborhoods.
You would find a place to play, and then you would play.
Neighborhoods.
Okay.
Neighborhoods played neighborhoods.
Okay.
Forest Lawn was known to have a very good neighborhood team.
Okay.
The guys were a little bit older than me. That was kind of going away as I was coming of age. Most of the guys down there are probably between 8 and 12 years older than me, and I know many of them to this day. The gang from the kids from the Adams Road area, we'd meet over where the West Webster Fire Department is right now.
Okay.
There was a small diamond there, and we'd play there. Or we could go down to Bay Road School and play there. There was a couple of diamonds at Bay Road School that were used by the school and also for the WAA, Webster Athletic Association. That's where we played Little League. And it was all sand, and it could rain all day long. And if it stopped at 6 o'clock, at 6:15, you could play.
Because it just went right through.
It just went right through.
Okay. Yep. Do you have any fond memories of school, like being in school, or teachers or subjects that were taught that you liked particularly?
Bay Road School was terrific. Bay Road School was just wonderful. I had all good teachers.
How about Spry and RL?
Both Spry, RL. In elementary school, the teacher probably sticks out in my mind most is Miss Tillotson. She was a music teacher. I played baritone. 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and she taught it there and at Plank Road, and she would put the two bands together to go to competition in the spring, and so the bands would consist of over 100 kids,
Wow.
and we had really good results. We'd always got A's in our competition. That was just fun. And she made you want to practice, because when you came to your lesson, you better know what you were doing. And you didn't fool around in band practice, and that's for sure. You didn't do that. That was just wonderful. The principal of the school was Lloyd Van Hoover. He was a phenomenal man. He was just a man that all the kids respected and all loved. And he had a memory that was unbelievable. Years later, when I was working for the highway department and we were paving a school parking lot, he came walking out many, many years later. He says, "Barry, how are you?" I said, "Very good, Mr. Van Hoover." And he says, "How's your sister Joan and your brother Rick?"
Wow.
He says, "How's your asthma? You still?" Because I'm an asthmatic, and in my youth I was very serious asthmatic, and I had to get treatments every now and then at school. And but it was like yesterday, he knew it.
So he remembered you.
He remembered me and my whole family and my mom and dad. It was something. I had Mr. Carpenter, who was my 5th grade teacher, and he became a principal. Mrs. Todd was my 1st grade teacher. Mrs. Lee was my 2nd. Miss Sherman was my 3rd. And Mrs. Fern Pellet, was my 4th grade teacher. And her family's a Webster family, and they were all great. They're all great. And then they got up to junior high school, and all hell broke loose.
So I know that eventually you were the highway superintendent of the town, but how did you get there? Like from what did you always want to be a highway superintendent? When you left high school, was there something you really wanted to do that drove you in that direction?
What I really wanted to do is I really wanted to be a phys ed teacher. And I was enrolled in Ithaca College and was getting ready to go, and I paid my initiation fee, my registration fee, and my dad said, "You're not going." And I said, "Why is that?" And he says, "Because I don't believe you're ready for college. I don't believe you're mature enough." And he says, "And that's an awful expensive college to go to." Back then it was like $4,000, and that made it one of the most expensive,
Yeah.
And he says, "That's the bad news. The good news," he says, "I got a job for you at Kodak, and you start next Monday." So I didn't have much of a choice, and I went and worked at Eastman Kodak for a year with the idea I was going to go to college. And I saved up money, and I went to Hudson Valley Community College the following year for a semester and some, and college wasn't for me. I still wasn't mature enough. And so I was going to go back to work at Kodak because I did real well there, and I liked it very much. And but there wasn't a job opening at the time. It was going to be a few months, so rather than sit around and wait, I went to work at the highway department.
So how did you get the job?
I went and applied.
Really? So you just went and applied?
I just went and applied, and they were hiring 2 people, and they hired Mike Geyer and I on the same day.
So initially, were you hired as a foreman?
A laborer.
A laborer.
I was a laborer.
All right.
You didn't start as foreman. You started out as a laborer.
Okay.
And from there I became a driver, and from there I became an equipment operator, and from then I became a foreman, and then I was a senior foreman, and then I was appointed highway superintendent.
Okay.
And I was in that position for a little over 15 years.
Total time in the highway department?
37 years.
37 years.
Yeah.
So now we can get into it. How many kind of changes did you see? Or do you have? I mean, you must have seen so many things happen while you were highway superintendent.
Just in the whole time I worked there. I mean,
the whole time you worked there.
The whole time, the storms that we put up with. In '72 was the Hurricane Agnes, and there was a lot of erosion along the lake shore. Bad erosion, really, really bad erosion. A house on Oklahoma Beach actually fell into the water. We spent a lot of time down there sandbagging and trying to shore it up. I delivered loads of sand in bags to houses all winter long in a truck, a 6-wheel truck. with a load of sand and 250 bags. And we'd get calls and have to sign a release to let us on the property, and I'd get that. And that's basically really how I learned how to handle an old Brockway that didn't have power steering.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Get it into tight spots and that kind of thing. But the storms, one thing you remember. We had a couple of beauties.
Now, were you involved in the ice storm? And what did you do for the ice storm that happened in 92?
91.
91, sorry.
My boss, Cliff Jones, was out recovering from a heart attack. So it was myself, Bob Duthoy, and Jerry Schneider. We were the three foremen. Bob Duthoy was the senior foreman. And we had the ice storm. And I was the duty foreman. I got a call to come in. And after I heard limbs falling on my house, I went in, and there I was for the next 3 days.
3 days.
I was there for 3 days. We all were. Called people in that could get in because we had to open the roads because there was a lot of stuff down, also a lot of lines down. Glen Edith was closed. I think it was 3 days. First day we couldn't get down. The second day we tried to get down there, and at first the ice started coming out of the trees, and so we had to get out of there.
Ah, okay.
And then the next day we went back, and while they were there, the trees started falling. And I'm pulling down. I was a foreman, and I was pulling down, and here comes a payloader and all the guys running out. Trees had started falling, and some of them had bridged across the road, and so they could get out and get underneath. So that road, we had to wait another day, and then we went in, and we came in from both ends, went from Summit Trail and from Bay Road, and cut them up and got them open, and we removed 50 trees.
Oh, wow.
That were down, and then we ended up removing another 50 that had to come down because they were leaning so badly, and FEMA came and SEMA came, and I rode with them. I ended up running the operation.
Wow.
Bob Duthoy and I, we talked about it, and I was the one that ran the operation. I was the one that had to go to the town hall and do all, because there was a lot of administrative work to go along with it as well. Because if you were going to get reimbursed by FEMA and SEMA being the state, you had to document everything. And so myself and our two secretaries, we had to go to a couple of classes to learn what they wanted, and to make sure we were able to document everything so we could get paid. And the total cost for that was right around $1 million.
Oh, wow.
And our girls, our ladies in the office did such a fantastic job that we were the very first to get reimbursed in Monroe County.
Wow.
And we got fully reimbursed. And the 12% of that was bared by the town. But it was a learning experience as well. For as far as cost-wise, we found that we probably could recover almost all of our cost if we contracted everything out rather than do it ourselves.
Okay.
So it was very interesting, but it was 3 months. And the guy from FEMA says, we're going to let you go till Memorial Day. And he said, I'm going to tell you right now, the whole month of May, all you're going to be picking up is yard waste.
Wow.
Which is exactly right. People were trimming their trees and bringing it out, and had a guy over on off a gravel road drop a 40-foot pine tree right behind us.
Okay.
And I went over and I said, we're picking up storm damage. He says, I know. He says, but I'll cut it up and stack it. You'll pick it up.
Wow.
And we did. He just picked up everything. But we had one a storm earlier that was like a wind shear that came through. And my boss, Cliff Jones, and both foremen were out of town. They loved camping. All three of them loved camping, and they'd go away on weekends. And I was left holding the fort, and a wind shear came through that was unbelievable. Over in Xerox, they picked a car up and put it up against the building over on Salt Road, and there was an orchard there. Every one of the trees was spun around and dropped.
Wow.
And all the telephone poles all down. We were all bent or broken, and so that was really sad. We didn't have an awful lot of cleanup, but it was a bad storm. You remember then snowstorms. the snowstorms. The days where.
Did you plow?
Yes, I did. I
Okay.
love plowing. It's one of the reasons why I stayed there. I just love plowing, and I love paving. I was first summer there. I got pulled out of a truck and got put on the back of one of the pavers to operate the back end of the paver. It's called a screed. The guy on the screed is the one that levels and puts it to depth.
Okay.
Okay, so you put it to grade and depth. That's what your job is. And I did that forever. I was the only guy that did that until I became superintendent.
Wow.
But I love plowing. I love plowing. It was
There must have been a ton of lane miles that were added to the town's total roads.
absolutely.
I mean-
I don't know what it is right now. I think back then it was around 110. I think now it's probably over 200. I'm not certain what it is. The cul-de-sacs, I think when I was there, the cul-de-sacs were around 80 or 90, and I think now it's like 150.
But doesn't it become like a huge job to try to repave all of those dedicated roads all the time?
Well, you don't have to repave them. You
Okay.
have to maintain them.
Okay.
And one of the processes we use, the chip seal, is one of the most disliked operations in town, but it is the most cost-effective way to keep a good road in good shape. You don't do it to roads that are in bad shape. Those are the ones you have to redo. But it's just like your driveway. You seal your driveway most every year because you want it to stay whole. Mm-hmm. It's the same principle. The only difference is you use a thicker emulsion to last longer, and you have to coat it with stone so that it's skid resistant. Okay, so you provide a wearing surface as well as making it waterproof.
Cool. Okay. Do you have any other memories from the time you were in the highway department?
I have a really good story.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
In '66, Webster, we had the worst storm, probably one of the worst storms in history. We got several feet of snow and then high winds, and so all the roads in town were closed. It had to be all opened by plows. And on the corner of my street and Shorewood Drive, there was a drift there that was probably 8 or 9 feet tall. And us kids, we made snowshoes out of plywood and rope and walked down and climbed up. And we're standing up on this drift looking down at the two trucks one had a big V-plow in it. And he'd hit it, and the guy'd pull him out. And then he'd hit it, and he'd pull out, and that's how they would advance to open the road. And the driver of the front truck, he yelled at us and used every single profane word you can possibly imagine. Every single one. And we were like 15 years old, and you didn't hear language like that back then. Today you would. Back then you didn't hear that kind of language. And he's basically, get off of there, do you want to die? But he called, oh my God, it was unbelievable. We got off of there. So my first day at the highway department, hey, there's that guy. His name was Rocky Straminio. So that was something, but we had a lot of, as far as growth, when we first, that was a brand new highway department. I started in '71. It had only been open 2 years. It was brand new in '69.
Oh, wow.
The old highway department used to be on Phillips Road, near 104, in that area right there. And so when I started there, where am I going with this? Well, there was only, I think, 16 or 18 guys that worked. It was a small crew. Mm-hmm. And we only had like 10 or 12 trucks,
So what was it like when you retired? How many trucks were there then?
I think there was 18 plow routes.
Wow.
I think they have 22 now.
Okay.
And the difference in the vehicles is incredible.
Well, in what way?
We drove Brockways, it was old, and even the brand new Brockways were not airproof, windproof. I mean, wind blew in, snow blew in through the doors. It's just the way it was, and you couldn't keep the front window defrosted. So Pete Miscavige and I, we'd light a rag. The dash was metal.
Okay.
We'd light a rag on the front and open up the wings, and the heat from the rag burning, and we'd keep it defrosted.
Wow.
And whenever you turned to go back into the wind when you were plowing, that's what happened. I drove the road grader, That was one of my jobs, and I loved running it in the summer. I despised it in the winter. It was very, very tedious. It was really loud. You had to have the radio in it turned up to 10 to hear your bosses calling you. They're telling you where they're watching, and it would blow you out of the cab. And you're all by yourself, and you get in at 3 in the morning. You don't get out of it till midnight of that day, and then you get back in it at 3 o'clock the next morning, 2:30, and you're going all day long. And it was a difficult job. It was a very difficult job. The front end on it was shot, and didn't have any money to put into the front end, so the wheels would do this on their own.
Okay.
So to steer it to go straight, you had to do like this all the time. That's how it made it go straight.
Got it.
So
Wow.
that was interesting.
Now, were there...
The trucks were old, okay, and now the trucks we're in now, oh my goodness, it's like being in a spaceship. You get into them, it's all electronic, everything. It's all automatic. All your salters are all ground speed control, so it spreads the same amount of pounds per lane mile at 5 miles an hour as it does at 30 miles an hour.
Ah, okay.
It controls everything.
And you had to do all that by hand?
Uh-huh. You used to have to do that all by hand. It was a lever, and you had to do it by the gate on the back, open it and close it. And we used a lot of salt back then. We used my route, I would use probably close to 10 tons of salt.
And you think that we use less now?
Now they use about 2.
Oh, wow.
Now they use about 2 for that same route.
Wow.
About 4,000 pounds. And that would be out of normal run. Okay, obviously it's variable according to how much you got and the temperature. And temperature's the big thing. Salt works. Salt stops working around 10 degrees, but if the sun is out, it works really good. But
did you spend most of your time down at the highway garage, or were you up at town hall? How was the relationship between town hall and the garage? Was everything good? Did you see the supervisor sometimes, or?
Rarely.
Okay.
Rarely. And it wasn't always good. That's why the union was formed.
Okay.
The union was formed because we couldn't get our town leaders to meet with us. And we'd set up dates, we'd set up appointments to meet with them, and they wouldn't show up. Okay, so it became very contentious.
So were you in the union for a while?
I was in the union. I actually became the president of the union.
Oh, wow.
I was the president of our local, and I was the treasurer of the local, Monroe County, for a number of years. So I ended up being on both sides of the table.
Yeah.
When it came to negotiations.
Do you think it got better as we've gotten more recent? I mean, with
Yes.
with Kathy. I mean.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Much more so.
Okay.
It became much more amiable. I mean, and our group of people were always a good group. They always were level-headed, smart individuals that knew that we work for the residents. Mm-hmm. Okay, and the very last thing you would want to see is a contract in the Webster Herald that you didn't want to live up to. You had to be reasonable, and they do very well. All of Webster's employees do well. They really do. Mm-hmm. They are compensated fairly.
Okay.
But it was very interesting. Coming from both sides, we were talking about equipment. They were old. The trucks were old. Even the new ones were no good. Yeah, but they were strong. That's why we bought Brockways. They had triple frames or double thick frames, and they were very strong. But as you grew, you needed more trucks because you were getting more lane miles. Mm-hmm. One year when I was superintendent, we picked up 11 new subdivisions in 1 year. That's almost a route. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's almost a route. That's the subdivision end of the route, not including the main roads. So we would have to periodically add a truck, which means we had to buy another truck. Mm-hmm. And so what you try to do in budgeting was buy one truck a year, one heavy-duty truck a year, because they're very expensive. And we keep them about 15 years. They used to be mainline for 12, and then spares for 3, and the spares are still used every day. They're just not front line. And now it's grown and grown and grown. And now they own almost all 10-wheelers. 10-wheelers improved dramatically. Their turning radius is very, very good now, where they didn't used to be. You had a real difficult time plowing a cul-de-sac with a 10-wheeler. Not anymore. They're very good. And when we work for Monroe County, the 10-wheelers make it so we're much more efficient. We can haul much more material per truck, and we do a lot of work for Monroe County. People don't, our residents don't always understand that. The work that's done in maintenance on Monroe County roads in Webster, usually the highway department does it, and we get compensated. They pay us time and material, wages, benefits. It's a good source of income, and we've done it forever. I mean, since I worked there, it was being done.
So Barry, since you started working at the highway department, have you always lived in Webster? I know you got married.
Yeah.
So what's your story? What's your story there? Did you move around a couple times in Webster? What did you do?
I lived in apartments over in Webster Manor when they were brand new.
That's off of Empire?
Yep.
Okay.
When they were brand new, they were really nice. And from there, and then I got married and bought a house on Brookwood Drive in 1978.
And you've lived there the whole time?
And I'm still there.
Oh, wow.
Second marriage.
Okay.
But I'm still there.
All right. Do you have children?
I have a son, Brian. He's 42. And then I have 4 stepchildren, Janelle, Jason, Dan, and Meg. And when I met my wife, Audrey, they were 1, 3, 7, and 9.
Oh, wow.
So I've known them since they were very little. And they've been my kids. They're my kids. And I have 8 grandchildren. That are the light of our lives. They're just wonderful. We have a blast with those kids.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just, there's fun. Their ages are from 4 months, twins, 4 months, to 16 years old.
Wow.
So.
Were you around when the Bay Bridge was actually being built?
Yes.
Because Brookwood is awfully close to the 104. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So what do you remember about that?
It just was a gigantic project, and it was just rolling day and night. The equipment running all night, all day, and then lighted up at night and stuff. And we like to go look at it, but you couldn't get too close. They didn't watch you near it.
Oh, okay.
So we didn't get on it most of the time, but it was quite a project. It was, huge. And, 104 was extended out to County Line Road. Mm-hmm. That used to end right at 5 Mile. Mm-hmm. And a lot of changes. You're bringing back memories.
I'm sorry.
That's good.
So,
that's good.
That's awesome. So
that's good.
So your neighborhood, so where Brookwood is, your neighborhood has also changed because they've extended streets in there and they've also added streets to the north. What was it like when you first moved in there?
Well, I can tell you that I could pull out on the Bay Road and not have to look both ways.
Really?
Yeah, there was no traffic.
Was there a stoplight there?
No.
Really?
No,
okay.
there's just so much traffic now. You can sit there, literally, for a couple of minutes at times.
Now, was it always 4 lanes?
Yes.
Okay.
Bay Road wasn't always 4 lanes, but it's always 4 lanes since I've lived there.
Okay.
I think it was in '69 they went from their 2 lanes. Bay Road was improved and Clem Road was improved. Mm-hmm. Clem Road to Holt Road.
Right.
The highway departments took on the job of extending Clem Road to Phillips Road. Webster was in charge with the Monroe County engineer and an office there on hand, but we needed more help than our department, so Irondequoit helped us, Penfield big time, Penfield, Irondequoit, sometimes Perrington, especially when we were paving. You'd have to have 20, 25 trucks, so that we extended that, we did all that. That was a very good learning experience. Our Webster Highway Department built that road.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Our department has the knowledge and has the equipment to do most any kind of construction when it comes to road building, rehab or brand new. I always said when I was superintendent, because I would go to Ithaca to the New York State College. Mm-hmm. spend a 4 or 5 days there and meet other superintendents. And when we would get talking, I would tell them, what we do, and they'd look at me, really? See, most highway departments, they plow, they do some paving and chip sealing. They mow roadsides, they might clean ditches. That's it.
Wow.
We had the expertise, we had the training, the expertise, the manpower, and the equipment to do all these things, and we utilized them all, and we made a lot of revenue from Monroe County doing that, which helps offset taxes, and it also gives you other things to do. It's interesting work. And I always maintained, I said we were the best highway department in New York State by far.
That's awesome.
I still believe that. And if we're the best in New York State, we might be the best in the country.
There you go.
Because I don't know any other, I was on a committee, a high-tech committee that met in Washington for we're using a new product called Ice Band. And they were expanding that. So I sat on this committee with a dozen people from all over the country. One actually from Alaska. And we talked about things that they did. A lot of the guys were DOT supervisors. Guy in Washington he was from Washington, looked just like Wilfred Brimley. We would talk, and nobody does what we do.
Wow.
Nobody. They hire it all out.
So you remember any big controversies that occurred while you were in the highway department inside the town? Anything with the village or anything with the county? Was there political things that popped up while you were there? I'm not getting into your town board stuff yet, because
there wasn't too many political things as far as highway. One controversy was when we used to use the cyclone boiler slag, the black stuff. We used that instead of sand.
Oh.
When temperatures get really cold, salt doesn't work very good. You need to put an abrasive down to make it so people can drive on it. Sand used to be the backup. That was the standard. It's filthy. Using sand is awful. It plugs your sewers.
Sure.
It plugs the chutes on your truck. It just everything. You wash your trucks off in the garage. It plugs the drains. It just it makes it so that you just don't want to use it. But you need the abrasive. So Kodak had what they called a cyclone boiler slag that was available, and they made it for free for the hauling.
Oh.
And it's little black crystals.
Okay.
And it was very, very good abrasive, and nothing grows in it. Okay, so if it's on the roadside, it doesn't plug sewers.
Sure.
Didn't plug the trucks. We didn't have any problems with that. But if you tracked it into your house, it got on your floors.
Was that during the time that Kathy was supervisor?
Yes.
Oh, I remember this. Okay. All right. Yep.
So we used it, and it worked really well, and we used it until we couldn't use it anymore.
Okay.
That was controversial. That was between that and the chip sealing, which is a yearly controversy. It just comes every year.
All right. So now, why did you decide to run for town board? I probably asked this question before to you, but I mean, like, what made you want to go and jump from being the highway superintendent to being on the Webster town board?
I wanted to remain working for the residents, working for the town I grew up in. Loved the town I grew up in. I wanted to be part of the administration that ran the town.
Okay. Any fond memories of the town board experiences? Any big? I mean, and you and I have some of these memories together, but I mean, do you have anything that really stands out in terms of things that you've done or controversies that came up or anything like that?
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Right now we're in the middle of a bunch of stuff that's going on. I'm not on the town board anymore. I stopped. I didn't run again this past year.
But there must have been other times where there were big projects that popped up that even I wasn't aware of.
One big project was the building of the Parks and Rec Center.
Ah, yeah.
Okay, now that was a really good deal. And Ron Nesbitt was instrumental in that.
Now the old part, the old one at Ridgecrest was like I remember.
There was a school.
Was it riddled with asbestos and things, or was that the reason?
It was going to cost as much to upgrade that to get it up to code as it was going to be to build a new one.
Ah.
And it just was a school. It wasn't meant to be a Parks and Rec Center.
Right.
It didn't have a garage. So, I mean, it didn't have a garage big enough for the equipment, so everything sat outside. which is not good. Your equipment lasts a lot longer if you can house it.
Yep.
And so we bought the acreage there. I forget how many. I think it's 70 acres from Xerox. And on that was a physical fitness center. And we turned that physical fitness center, we restructured that into the community center. And so now we have that, as well as basketball courts, and the ball diamonds are still there. And there's a walking track, and there's a kids' playground in the back, a memorial
Yep.
playground in the back that was built, and it's a beautiful center. That was a huge project, and I actually got to be part of the team that was on the development of that project.
Oh, okay.
So we met weekly or bi-weekly on all the, I think it was weekly we met down there with all the contractors and the subs and the general contractor and that kind of thing. And Mark Yeager was the commissioner, and so he was instrumental as well.
Were there some town board members that you knew before you became a town board member? Were they part of the reason that you could, because you seem to easily transition from one thing to the other?
I'll tell you that as a superintendent, I met with the town. I found out right away you better come to all the meetings, even if you don't have anything on the agenda, because questions always get asked.
Ah.
And if you're not there to give the answer, somebody else will, and it's usually not right. So there was some times when it was a little contentious because information was spread that just wasn't accurate.
So that's why you were there, is to make
So
sure.
I had to start going to all the meetings. But been really fortunate in that we call them the town fathers, the supervisor and the town board, have always been easy to communicate with and have been very supportive. In particularly the highway department, I always felt they're very supportive. But they were supportive of all the departments. But we were able to, we never got everything we asked for. We never asked for anything we didn't need. But there's only so much money. So you have to do with what you got and try to improve a little bit every year. And our town board members were always easy to talk to. The one thing you can always say about our supervisors and our town board members, for as long as I can remember, they came from Webster. They were residents of Webster. They loved Webster. They're responsible and responsive to the residents, and tried to make Webster, the place where life is worth living.
Yes.
And they all cared, and they're all approachable. It was great, no matter which political side you were from. They were all great. It was good to work with, and I knew them all. I knew Ed Seitz. I went to a store.
Did you know Hank?
Sure, I knew Hank.
All right.
And I knew Hank. I knew Joe, his brother Joe, and Frank. They were my bus drivers. Two of them were bus drivers I had.
Because he was supervisor for a while, so you must.
Hank was one term, I believe.
Yes.
Bill Lochner. I knew Bill Lochner very well, and his boys.
So was your family Republicans, or how did you come to be? Because I've always known you were running as a Republican candidate. Was that always where you were headed?
I think it was inherent. I don't remember my father ever talking politics in the house. Ever.
Okay.
Ever. And yet one day one of my friends said to me, "Well, your dad was a big Republican." Well, I said, "Well, he was big. I didn't know he was Republican." He said, "Oh, yeah." He says, "Your father was a big Republican." And I asked my father, I said, "Is that true, Dad?" And he said, "They asked me to be the Republican leader in the town."
Wow.
And he said, "But I did not want to be." And that's as much as I can ever remember politically. I knew what team I wanted to run with, and I was always independent, not independence, but independent.
Yep.
And then I joined the Republican. I joined the Republican team, and because I thought that's what I saw were the best adapted to running our town, and I wanted to be part of that.
Were you involved in any other groups in the town during the time, during all this time you've been involved in, I know, because right now you've been very involved in the museum. Have you been involved in other groups?
Only within the town. I was chairman of the personnel committee for a while. I was on the safety committee for a while. I'm sure there was a few more.
Well, I have your resumes, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, but I'd say there were, but I mean, is there, so really, it's really been, your focus has really been
That has been my
the
focus.
town residents and the town government.
Yes, yes. And my full focus is as superintendent. I play golf out at Sodas, and I was on the board of directors, and I was scheduled to be the president of the board out there when I became superintendent, and I had to turn it down. Because I told him I had to give him my full focus has to be on my job in Webster.
Is there any part of the town you think you don't know? It sounds to me like you've been to every street, probably seen every house. You've even, looks like, it almost seems like you've been on the ground when subdivisions have actually been built.
Well, since I've retired, there's been a lot that have been built, and I don't know all the names. I can say that I knew every name of every street in town, where they were located, and somebody on that street that I knew.
Wow.
In general, not anymore.
So I mean, but you also had to deal with things like drainage. So you have
Yes.
to know where all the DIs are, and the drainage, and
Yep.
all the lines that sit under the roads. Those are all things that you have to deal with, right?
Right. We evolved into that. We actually formed a team to do nothing but drainage in the summer months because of all the issues we had to. We had a foreman that Bob Duthoy. That was one of his specialties. He basically handled all the drainage calls, and eventually, he'd have a couple people that would work with him, and then a couple more, and then you had to have equipment. And over a period of 10 years, we eventually had a team of like 7 or 8 workers that had their own specialized piece of equipment or truck and would work as a team to do all the drainage issues. And they still have that to this day.
Wow. So do you remember things like when Wegmans came in, or when they took down the houses on Ridge Road, or when the plaza? I mean, all those things happened when you were right there.
I remembered when they moved the houses, and I remembered when they built the bluffs.
Oh,
When they
yeah.
built the bluffs, it was owned by Lloyd Jameson, which was my backyard. There was a field of about 75 to 100 yards between my backyard and his property, which is now the bluffs. And he lived back there by himself with his wife, and everything was pink. His house was pink, his barns were pink. He had Arabian horses. That was his love. And I believe his company was Jameson Heating and Cooling. Okay, you might see him still around. Jameson Schindler? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
But Lloyd Jameson, anyhow. When they sold that, they moved that house.
They did.
Yeah, they moved that house. I believe they moved that house to the corner of Countryside Lane and Bay Road. I think that's the house.
Wow.
I think it is. I'm pretty sure it is. I could be wrong. But it seems to me that was the house. But then they built back there. And that was a playground for us, the woods. You could always go and play in the woods, building forts and that kind of deal. But you always had a trail that went down to the bay as well through there. So, anywho.
What do you think is the biggest change that's actually happened in the town in all the time you've been here?
The development.
Just the development.
The development, the size. As a kid, pretty much everything east of Holt Road was farmland. Now there's very little farmland left. There's only a few guys farming out there yet. And unless their kids and their grandkids want to continue to do it, it won't happen. That's what's happening in the farmland is you got to have family that want to continue doing it to make the investment.
Right.
You want to buy a piece of equipment, it could be $500,000, that piece of equipment. And so you want to make sure you're going to be running for 20 years because you got to be able to make money to pay for that.
Yeah.
So a lot of farmers, their kids don't want to do it, and they don't want to do it, and so they're left to just close up. And when they die, the kids sell the farmland. So that's the biggest change, I would say, and we've had to keep up with the growth. We've had to keep up with the infrastructure. As you know, one big thing is our sewage treatment plant has changed a number of times over the last 50 years, and is changing again. It's going to be something when it's done. They just finished phase 1 here recently. Now they're into phase 2.
Because there was a time that you were actually in charge of the sewer treatment plant.
I was the administrator.
Okay.
Yep. Mike Caparelli was he was the head of the department, and he left. And they had a hard time. They couldn't find anybody that wanted the job. Apparently, they couldn't find anybody that wanted the job.
So were you doing both jobs at the same time?
Yes, for 4 years.
Oh wow. So Barry, how was that? Was that a lot of work for you?
That was a lot. And running the highway department was just like breathing. I had really good personnel. I had 3 foremen that were excellent, and an excellent crew. It was to me, it became, like I said, just like breathing.
Yeah.
What you had to worry about was budget and unforeseen things like storms that happen or whatever. But the sewage treatment plant, two of their operators, 2 of their senior individuals asked me if I would be interested in becoming their administrator. They said they don't need anybody to run the plant. They have the people that can do that. We don't need anybody in the collection system. They have the people that can do that. And they're all really good at it, and they all really were good at it. They just need somebody to be the administrator, to make sure everybody's following all the rules and the budget and all that kind of thing. And so I did that for 4 years. And, it would vary, the amount of time you would spend there. I try to be there every morning before I went to the highway. Get everybody, be there where everybody kicked off and went off to work and that kind of deal. And if I had to be there for anything else, I would be. And that kind of stuff, Yeah. They had very, very competent people there.
Okay.
Guys that took a lot of pride in their work. A lot of pride in their work.
You have done a lot of things.
I've been involved in a lot.
You have.
Yeah.
So if someone were to ask you, what are the big life lessons? So taking this to like the 50,000 level, if you were talking to your son, what are your big life lessons that you've taken out of everything you've done? If you're advising someone.
How to treat a lady.
How to treat a lady. Okay.
I've been married a couple times.
Okay.
I've had a few relationships. Those are things I've learned a lot. And I'm recently born again.
Okay.
I was baptized about 4 years ago by a fellow who was the youngest brother of 5 that I grew up with in my neighborhood. Joel, it was Dan Smith, Larry Smith, Robin Smith, Joel Smith, and Teddy Smith. And Teddy Smith is youngest, and he's a pastor. And I ran into him in the hospital one day. He was there making calls, and I was there visiting my sister. She had been sick. And we got to talking, and my wife and I were looking for a new church. And out in Williamson.
There you go. Okay.
He said, stop in. So we did. And we've been there ever since.
Wow.
And it's been...
I mean, your whole life you've worked hard, it sounds like. Is that one of the little secrets that you would give someone in terms of how they should approach life?
Yes. You got to be doing things that benefit people, yourself, your family. You got to be productive. Productivity to me is one of the you got to be productive. You can't just be existing and living off of somebody else. You got to be productive. If everybody's productive, we go a long way.
It also seems like you had fun, though.
Oh, I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. I'm telling you, I've had a lot of fun. More fun than anybody should ever have.
Oh, that's good. Well, anyways, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you'd like to talk about? Anything we missed? Something that you want people to remember you by? Because that's why we're here today, is just to talk about you and your life. So,
I didn't realize that to begin with. I didn't know that what this was all about. faith, family, devotion. That's what it's all about.
We should have put that in a campaign piece. So.
That's funny. Yeah.
Well, that's excellent. Well, Barry, thank you. And maybe sometime we can get back together again if anything comes up that you think about. Or, but we didn't want to lose. We didn't want to lose this for the record for people, because there's just so much you've done. And I've been privileged to know you for the time that I have, and to tell
Thank you.
It's been a great experience knowing you. So, yeah.
Well, I'm going to be here for a while.
I know.
I hope. But working for the town of Webster, working for the town of Webster has been very, very, very rewarding for me. Extremely rewarding. And you go out, you don't do it for the awards. You do it because that's what you want to do. You're proud of it. You know, I never looked at our highway department as me. I looked at it as our department. I wouldn't want to say that I'm the best highway superintendent, or I wouldn't want to say I was part of the best highway department. The best highway department that existed. And I inherited a really good department from my mentor, Cliff Jones. And I think I made it better.
Mm-hmm.
And it involved everybody. You know, I mean everybody. The town board, the employees, the residents, because residents can tell you their needs as well that you're not quite aware of. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's something new, because at times are changing way faster than I can keep up with. And technology is becoming part of life that it never was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have a new highway superintendent. Technology, my goodness, he's phenomenal. He brings to the table a lot of what none of the rest of us could have ever brought to the table. The education he brings to the table, his experience in managing big projects, all the administrative things that go along with it. You know, and he's worked in the field. He's worked out in the field as well. It's just one of the most gratifying things I can say, for me personally, is being involved the last 2 years in the hiring of all of our new department heads. We've got 8 or 9 new department heads that the old ones retired, through attrition. Every single one of them has been a home run. Every single one. We are so much better today than we ever were because of it. Our Department of Public Works now is communicating on a daily basis with the sewer department and the highway department. It's not 3, it's almost as though they're 1. You know, and it's working really well. Our Parks and Rec, I could go on and on. It's just, all of them are just wonderful. We've been lucky to get Paul Adams to come back. He's been terrific. We have a new town clerk is terrific. Mm-hmm. I could go on. I know I'm going to miss somebody here. We have a new chief of police. Home run. Phenomenal. It's just every department is now sewer department. We brought a guy in that was retired from Rome, New York. That's going to help us accomplish a new sewer department, one like he just got through building. You know, it's all here, and he's enthusiastic, and his co-work, his co-partner, Art, working down there, it's just been a big asset. You know, it's just everything is clicking.
Excellent.
You know, everything is clicking.